how do you explain the fact that Embiid didn't touch the ball down the stretch?
Well, you can't explain it. It doesn't make any sense. I can explain it as best I can just saying this. You've got three guys leading a team that struggle to close the deal. And that, of course, since Doc Rivers won a championship with Boston, that has been his record now, 17-34 in attempts to close out a series. That's not a great record. So we start there because your coach has got to recognize that your best player is not getting the ball. Let's also talk about Joel Embiid, who can't get over the hump of the second round. They say a big man, put your forearm in the chest of Time Lord and say, give me the damn ball, like Keyshawn Johnson always said. He's got to do that, demand the ball. And then there's James Harden. You're the point guard, man. How do you not recognize that your best player is not getting the basketball to close out this game, to finish the job? The knockout punch never came, and now you've got to play a Game 7 with three guys who clearly don't know how to win.
Yeah, and you know what? Being from Philly, we're used to epic collapses, but this, especially seeing Embiid saying, I didn't get the ball, I'm expecting him to yell and scream and be upset. Monica, the Philly only scores 13 points in the fourth. How big of a meltdown was this for Embiid and the Sixers?
Ryan, I feel for you on this Friday morning. Listen, this was a meltdown of epic proportions, but it showed the difference in terms of the experience of these two teams. It was so almost eerily ironic in hindsight to hear Doris Burke give Doc Rivers a ton of credit for the biggest adjustment having nothing to do with basketball, and that being instilling belief and confidence in this Sixers squad. And then you saw Jason Tatum hit a basket, and the match was causing the fire to be lit for the Celtics. And so you saw Philly basically have one of those negative self-fulfilling prophecies, right? Oh, here we go again. Something always happens to us. And instead of fighting that, it almost felt that they just acquiesced and allowed it to happen. And the Celtics, of course, leaned into the power that Jason Tatum brought into the fourth quarter and showed that they were a team that had previously been to the finals. And so it was really a disappointing kind of meltdown for Philly. But I would give the Celtics a ton of credit.
Yeah, but I can't stop thinking about Philly.
How can you not?
I know.
First of all, this series is like having teenagers, and I have this experience because it's moody. Like you heard what Monica just said, right? The self-fulfilling prophecy. Oh, things don't work out for us. Woe is me. That's called emo mode. We go emo. We hide in the room.
Oh my gosh.
Things aren't going well for us today. And then all of a sudden, there's Jason Tatum, who's he doesn't feel like playing. But now you're sitting at the kitchen table. Oh, you're coming down? You're coming down to talk to us? You're going to spend time with us now? You're happy right now? Let's enjoy this moment while we can. Like, this is what a parent is like when you have teenage kids. And if you're asking me to say, who's going to win Game 7? I don't know, because I don't know what mood you're going to be in when you wake up tomorrow. So I'm just going to wake up and hope you're happy today. And if you're a Celtics fan or a Sixers fan, this is what it's like having teenage kids.
This feels so awkwardly personal, Monica. Please help us.
Just a little bit. I will say that in my teenage years, in my household, it was don't come downstairs unless you got yourself together. You can figure it out upstairs because we pay the bills around here. And therefore, I do think right now that is sort of the way that maybe Joe Mazzulla has the opportunity to parent if we stick with this analogy, right? Like the Celtics have now shot themselves in the foot late in game twice. They've also been terrific late in game now in a big sort of momentum swing as they head back to Boston for this ball game. I think that Jason Tatum being able to navigate what has to be one of the worst halves of his career in the last 4 seasons or so was huge. It was huge. And then you talk about the wrinkle of putting Robert Williams and Al Horford on the floor together at different points in the way they were able to defend the Sixers. This is a team that not only believes they can do it, they have done it. They have gotten past this point. And so right now, as far as momentum goes or having an edge, it feels like the Celtics have the edge and it's all up here.
Yeah, and here's the problem for Sixers fans, by the way, like me. The Sixers haven't believed they could do it.
Right.
And that's the problem.
And that's all the Celtics
How are they going to get it done?
That's all the Celtics needed.
Yeah.
And I really feel this way when you're watching this game. Yes, the Celtics had the lead the whole way, but that push in the third quarter, and I was texting with Tim Legler. Legs and I were going back and forth. Legs obviously knows the Sixers very well. And we were both feeling that this game is turning. It's turning in the favor of the Sixers. The building is behind them. They're home. They're rolling. They have a lead. Knockout punch time. It's ready. Corner three. Brick. Yep. And that's the part you leave the door open. And that's the dangerous thing when you have superstars like Jason Tatum, who have been nothing all game. It just takes one shot. Like an NBA Jam, you 3 straight baskets. He's on fire, right? For a guy like Jason Tatum, for stars, one shot, they're on fire. They believe it. And that corner three, contested corner three he made, he's on fire at that point. All the Celtics needed was to leave that door open for them. and they walked right through it and forced the game.
And Monica, it makes me think about Tatum. You know, he talked about, you saw his teammates trying to pump him up on the sidelines. He talked about how he always believed he could do something and he got it done. Monica, what did you think?
Well, the other part of this, Ryan and Han, to me, is the very fundamental things we learn about basketball when we first fall in love with it in elementary school, right? Basketball is a game of runs. And you give the Sixers a ton of credit as we look at what Jason Tatum was able to do in the fourth quarter. You give them a ton of credit for overcoming 16-point deficits, not once, but 2 times in the course of this ballgame. But it felt as if they thought that they had done the work already, right? So you go back to the sound from Doc Rivers early in the series. Do you expect this to be easy? It's not going to be easy. And so, for whatever reason, you can't pat yourself on the back until the mission is completely accomplished. Now, I'm with you, Ryan, as far as who's responsible for this. I'm really now sitting and evaluating what I've observed as far as the Sixers' personalities, because there's no way your MVP doesn't call for the basketball. I'm with you, Han, right? Like, give me the ball. I've been having a successful game. What are we doing, right? Somebody on that squad, and I don't think it's Doc Rivers, has to say, we're not going out like that.
Alan, the Suns, I mean, this season's a failure for them, right?
No,
No?
not even close. It's not a failure. No, and I'm not going to do the Giannis thing because I do believe that there are some situations where you can look at a team and say this is a failure, but this isn't, because this is just the beginning of something for the Phoenix Suns. You got to understand, you're going to pay that ransom for a guy like Kevin Durant, and it gutted the team. But you're going to do that to get a player like Kevin Durant. And you know that this isn't a one-year deal. This isn't all right, we're going to go for it and we lose him at the end of this season. You've got him for the next 4 years. You still have him under contract, and he's still clearly, by the way he's played, in his prime and one of the great scorers that you have. He and Devin Booker together are one of the most lethal duos we've seen in the playoffs in a long time. But what they were doing, Monica, was not sustainable, because they were at one point averaging almost 70 points a game in the playoffs as a duo, with no one else really kicking in. And what we've talked about in the playoffs with good playoff teams is depth. So to me, the pressure now is on James Jones, the general manager, Matt Ishbia, and this franchise to now try to use these 2 magnets that you have to attract players to come to Phoenix, which is a pretty attractive place to go in the winter, and try to build a championship team that then next year should be the favorite to win. And if they don't next year, then we can start using that F word.
If I were with you right now, I'd give you a high five and say retweet, Han, because I completely agree. I believe I'm fairly confident we're talking about less than 25 games with KD on the floor for this Phoenix Suns squad. And so this is basically the promise of tomorrow, right? I do think it's going to be interesting in terms of what this team looks like over the course of the regular season, because KD had the luxury of basically coming in off of what the previous team had done in terms of the standings and allowing them to get the position that they did get in the postseason. But I don't think this is a failure at all. I do think, though, and we're seeing it throughout the course of the playoffs, the role of defense in terms of winning, we should not forget how important that is, because arguably, if those 2 guys were 2 of your best two-way guys, maybe you have a chance in terms of the defensive fortitude that the Suns could put up. But overall, the Nuggets are the number 1 seed for a reason. They have the depth, and they have a 2-time MVP over there. So this is not a bad loss. This is the number 1 seed you went out to. You move on to next year.
The Sixers scored 13 points in the fourth quarter last night. Embiid scored nearly half the team's points in the final frame, but the Celtics limited the MVP as the quarter dragged on. Embiid shot just 1 attempt in the final 5 minutes.
They limited the MVP?
Yeah.
Yes.
I don't know if
Shocker.
I don't know if they limited the MVP. I feel like Doc Rivers limited the MVP.
All right. Let's talk about that, Jay Will.
Oh.
Let's talk about that, because you know what? I look at that and I'm like, why is the MVP not demanding, pounding, and time? Give me the ball. I'm going to win this thing for you. What do you make of him not getting it?
1,000,000% Joel Embiid needs to demand the ball. 1,000,000% the extension of the head coach on the floor, James Harden, needs to be cerebral enough to actually put him in a position to succeed. But at the end of the day, man, like, the quarterback coach of this team is Doc Rivers. So when I hear Doc Rivers at the post-game presser talking about, I don't know, we need to give the big man a ball. Yes, you need to give the MVP of the league a touch. Now, that doesn't answer questions on the defensive end, but when your best player does not touch the ball for 3 minutes and 56 seconds left to go in the game, that is the glaring omission of the fact that, once again, the head coach has not put his team in a position to succeed.
Monica, how big of a meltdown is this for Philly?
Like a scale of 1 to 10, Ryan? Which one?
Yeah,
I'm trying to
scale
make you feel
1 to
better.
10. I'll take that. 11?
I was gonna go 8. Listen, it's funny, Jay, that tape that we just watched was terrific. There's plenty of blame to go around, right? Like, we could do a blame pie. Why are you on the three-point line, Joel Embiid? Like, there's multiple pieces of this that are head-scratching at the least. But most of all, I think you saw a team that feels like and has lived through something always happens. Now, and the only way to combat that sort of mentality is to literally go at it, right? Like, there's a little bit of hero ball here. Tyrese Maxey had been having a terrific ball game, doesn't get that shot to call. I couldn't see the shot clock on that play, but there's this lack of time and score. Like, that's a good shot for PJ Tucker. But again, time and score in this moment. You could feel the charge from this Celtics squad in terms of closing the gap. And so just to be rushed and to get out of character, these are the moments where you have a timeout and the conversation is, yo, let's go back to what's been working for us. Let's settle down. Everybody take a deep breath. Let's not settle for a good shot. Let's get the best shot, and let's go to our MVP. Come on now.
What do you think, Alan?
Well, I'm seeing Jay wearing a Mets jacket.
Which is driving me crazy, by the way.
No, but here's the whole thing. There are franchises that exist.
Oh, don't do this.
That what happens with them.
Oh, wait, I want to hear that. No, please.
They can't
Alan
escape
is
from a
talking.
spot.
Alan, go ahead.
I'm sorry, Uncle Stevie, this guy.
They can't escape their own history. And getting over the hump, which is literally what the Sixers are trying to do here, is something always goes wrong.
Yeah.
Something always happens, and it takes a strong force to drag them over that hump. It's not going to be, hey, just X's and O's and you win. Call a timeout. Remind them to do this. It takes a strong force to do that. It takes a black cat in 1973 or 69. It takes Dwight Gooden. It gets by Buckner. Do you understand what I mean? It takes crazy things to happen to get franchises like this over the hump. And that's where the Sixers are right now. That's the problem with them. And let's remind people, Joel Embiid in the last 355, it's not that he didn't get any shots. He didn't touch the ball. Not even a touch. Everybody in the building knows that. You don't need a PhD in basketball to know that. So how does it not happen? I go to this.
Yeah, Monica wants to jump in, but Monica, I agree with you so much, Alan. I want to see broken clipboards. I want to see fury on the sideline.
There was no one on the bench that said something?
Y'all, broken clipboards and fury, like that, what does that mean? You got to play basketball at a high level, and you can't overcomplicate the thing, right? Like, you have the personnel that is capable. Now, the redeeming quality on this one is that didn't finish out the series. You've got a Game 7, and I'm not sure that the Celtics have excised all of their demons in terms of their late-game decision-making. But for the first time in this series, to be fair, for the first time in this series, the Celtics made decisions down the stretch in a close ball game that did not cost them the game. And so, as much as it's a sort of an 8 on the debacle scale for the Sixers, I also got to give the Celtics a ton of credit for pulling that thing off, in particular, Jason Tatum.
Well, two things, two shout-outs. Number one, Jason Tatum, like Monica said, down the stretch, 16 points in the fourth quarter after having an atrocious three quarters. Talks about his resolve as a player or as a humble best player in the league, as he referred to himself, which I love to humble brag. And secondly, you got to give credit to where credit's due, because this guy, I feel like, has been in a battle with the media for people to recognize his genius as it relates to coaching. Shout out to Joe Mazzulla. First off, he used his challenge correctly on the Al Horford play down the stretch, got that reverse, but also he started Robert Williams next to Al Horford. And when Robert Williams starts next to Al Horford, he plays off PJ Tucker, which allows PJ Tucker to shoot that shot. That's a win for the Celtics. And then, by the way, every time Joel Embiid turns and he faces and he sees Al Horford, he also sees Robert Williams. So there's not a lot of room for him to operate. That's a wrinkle that I thought led to them having a victory.
Great strategy move right there. What was it, the first time they started together, and it made all the difference in this series, and it made all the difference in this one.
Thank you for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.